Good morning to all of you following the Oracle Congress for Cultural Managers and Cultural Operators. We came to the last day of the Congress, and practically this is the last session, public session, which is open to follow for all interested viewers or citizens. And after that, we will have to close session and we will close officially the 22nd edition of the Oracle Congress. We are discussing today a very important topics. The name of the Congress is Division and dealing with different polarities in cultural field, but also wider in the society. And we are opening a question here related to human rights violation. And I'm really pleased to tackle this question with very important women activists who really in their career were fighting against violation of different groups of humans in different contexts and societies, acting on the local scene, but very much involved in the international context. So this session is scheduled to have 1 hour and 30 minutes. And in the first 30 minutes, we will have a presentation of Dounia Benslimane. She's coming from Morocco, Casablanca, and because of the time difference of 7 hours, they are now being 3 a.m. in the morning. She will not be able to join us live, but she did a very interesting and dynamic presentation with voiceover, and we will all together watch this presentation. And after that, in 10:30, we start with a kind of interesting format, which two lovely ladies will have their presentations around 10 minutes, and after that they will have conversation between each other, and the floor will be open for the audience to ask questions. These two lovely ladies are Lidia Makowska, expert in culture and equity human rights policies, a certified trainer against discrimination and a cultural manager coming from Gdańsk, Poland, and Uranija Pirovska. People from the local context know Rania very well, and her activities being a very active 20 years of experience in human rights issues, the head of the Helsinki Committee in Skopje, Macedonia, Helsinki Committee for Human Rights in Skopje, Macedonia. So I will start now with very short presentation of Dunya. She's very interesting because she has this unusual combination of being a person having medical degree, but also degree in cultural project management. She's now currently developing her skills in culture even more by being a fellow at the University of Minnesota. Her engagements in human rights issues through her organization, Raciness Association, was having a very active role in their context of Casablanca. But because of that, it was kind of closed of the government, of the Moroccan government, not willing to have this kind of activities in their context. Dounia Benslimane is also engaged as a researcher and regional advisor for the MENA region and Africa for NGO Free News that defends artistic freedom worldwide. She will refer to the subject called How to Help People in Danger and Organizations Who Acted Against the Government. So practically she is dealing with the issue of violation and restriction of freedom of artists and civic workers, which are also present in so-called or proclaimed democratic countries and societies, that this violation can manifest with different restrictions from physical to social inclusion, even going to measures such as censorship, assassinations, and imprisonment. So she is calling up for joint efforts and actions on local and international level to monitor these violations and to act in the respect of human rights provision. So now I will share the screen and start with the presentation of Dunya.
Good morning. This is Dunya. I am delighted to be able to share this presentation with you today. I would have liked that we could meet as we do every year to see friendly faces again, to get to know new members and friends, and to discover together Skopje and Macedonia and share wonderful moments together, dinners, drinks, and so on. Obviously, I would have preferred to be live online with you this morning, but the time difference doesn't make it possible. It is 3 a.m. where I am now in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the American Midwest. Hopefully, I'm sleeping. I've just started a human rights fellowship program at the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, which will end next summer. And here I am saying hi to you all and greeting you with the gopher, the mascot of the University of Minnesota. So now let's get started. My topic today is to speak about decent artists at risk. This presentation will be, of course, about the way of supporting these artists, but it will also provide an overview of the situation of artistic freedom and artistic expression all around the world, to present you some numbers, statistics, and facts, and share together with you the way that we can all stick together in order to be stronger and to support artists and activists that defend their art or that who are persecuted or at risk. So 2020 has been a very difficult year for all of us around the world, probably on every level for many industries, if not all industries, on a personal level and on a professional level. We were locked down and prevented from circulating sometimes. We found ourselves cut off from our friends, our families, our habits, our work and workplaces. We had to face an endless flow of information with a variety of information, more or less true, more or less credible. We had to reinvent and to rediscover communication tools to continue working together and to stay connected to others and to the words and not to sink. Uh, I'll tell you, and this is not a new, that culture, the arts, and artists are probably among the sectors most affected by this health crisis. Our premises have closed. Our projects have stopped. The incomes of the arts and culture professionals have fallen. Trainings have slowed down or have migrated online. Funding has been suspended or diverted to other sectors. Support and recovery programs have been slow to set up in some countries and are almost non-existent in others. And yet, culture is certainly what should not be marginalized, especially in these difficult times. Culture is, of course, you know that, what creates the links between people, what provides well-being and happiness, what creates social cohesion among communities and between communities. And culture is certainly more than crucial right now and an important contributor to the thinking and reflections that are going on to design and um, to draft the world after the COVID pandemic. But culture and the art uh, are and have always been vulnerable and threatened. in particular when artists and cultural actors transmit free, nonconformist, provocative, protesting, subversive, dissident expression towards a political, economic, social, religious, or cultural authority. And this, my friends, is happening everywhere. According to the 2020 State of Artistic Freedom report, published annually by the NGO Free Muse, more than 700 acts of violations of artistic freedom happened in 2019 in 93 countries around the world. So arts and culture might be persecuted everywhere worldwide. So the organization Free Muse has listed 13 countries where the situation of freedom of artistic expression is in particular at particular risk and concerning. These 13 countries are Brazil, China, Egypt, France, Indonesia, India, Iran, Lebanon, Nigeria, Russia, Turkey, the United States of America, and Zimbabwe. And you see that in the list we can find also countries that are known for being democratic and run by the rule of law. You can also see the number of artists persecuted differently in a certain number of countries around the world. So they can be persecuted, abducted, restricted from travels, threatened and harassed, attacked, fined or sanctioned, and even killed. But the most important act of violation of this freedom is censorship. So more than half of these violations are censorship. Music is the most frequently targeted artistic discipline. In 32% of the case, the artist is a musician or works in the music industry. After music, it's visual arts and then films industry. And there is a top 3 list of countries which actually violated artistic freedom for filmmakers. And these 3 countries are quite different politically and democratically. So it's Russia, United States, and China. But any artistic discipline might be subject to persecution or to violation. There are also a list of 7 countries made by Free Muse. These countries are those with the most registered cases of censorship. And here we are speaking of USA, China again, and Russia, but also the United Kingdom, Iran, France, and Serbia. And these numbers, of course, are those related to the year 2019. So it's not only the artistic disciplines that are targeted. Some specific groups are also subject to persecution more than the general groups. So the statistics show that minority groups are also targeted. So minority artists or artworks that tackle minority issues is primarily targeted across the countries, most of the time in the global north region. The LGBTI community of artists and artwork related to LGBTI people are also attacked, both in the countries that criminalize and homosexuality and those who don't. And last but not least, women artists and artworks that depicts women or tackle feminist issues is also under attack more than other artistic groups or art-related groups. And women's are, as artists, are more subject to censorship, harassment, threats, and sometimes to legal persecution. Most of the time for indecency. And beside this, women artists will face more discrimination, especially in countries where it is legally complicated to for them to contribute to the cultural life and to the artistic industry. And we have some numbers. This is more seen in the Middle East and North African region, for instance, where the attacks and these violations are perpetrated by governmental institutions. Politics, indecency, and religion are respectively the most frequent rationale for silencing artists or for banning free artistic expression. These different groups can be behind these persecutions. The governments are actually number one. Then other groups can also interfere, like nationalist groups, like white supremacist or any other extremist or radical groups. You can also list the different religious group, and here all the religions are concerned by this. Also, borders and migration authorities can prevent some artists from entering a territory or a country because of different reasons, like political reasons, like conflict reasons between two countries. Syndicates and unions of artists and professionals of arts can also be the ones who persecute the artistic community. It's the case, for instance, in Egypt, where the unions and the syndicates of artists are the armed leg of the government to sue artists and to persecute them for different reasons. So it might be for national security reason, for religious reason, for counterterrorism reason, for conflicts. It happens in different area where there are a conflict going on between two countries, like between Israel and Palestine, like in Kashmir, in other places all over the world. And the other trend is the role of the digital platform and social media in which sometimes from which the arts are removed or banned on the ground of the standards of the community. It's the case for Instagram, for example, for the nudity, women's breasts and nipples, etc. So these are all different groups that could be violators for different kind of every year some trends emerge in different countries, and different tools of repression are put in place by different states to reduce spaces and opportunities for expression. Last year, the main alarming laws put in place were related to preventing indecency, for example, in the film industry in order not to screen bad scenes, for example, or sexual scenes. This is happened in some countries like Indonesia, Tajikistan. So you will find some laws like to prevent blasphemy or pornographic or seen as pornographic content. Of course, some specific laws as well can be put in place to prevent insulting the head of state or insulting the state's symbol or using them, for example, the flags, the national anthems, from insulting, for example, the head of state, the president, the king. Countries like Russia, Turkey, Morocco, and others are known for using such articles of law. Some other specific laws can be related to digital and family law, like for example in Egypt, the Egyptian justice based on this digital law to prosecute a lot of women using TikTok and using and sharing TikTok video. So they were put in prison for on the ground of this law. Anti-terrorism law are also used against against some artists, either because a conflict between two countries or because of their position defending some political ideas or some political groups. The disposition of some penal codes and penal law can be used against some artists sometimes because of their opposition, and then these articles are used either as fabricated charges to put these artists in jail and to silence them. It can be for violating the public order, or for calling to forbidden or non-authorized gathering and demonstrations, for participating to protest or march, or for publishing political opinion on their social media, for getting involved in politics, etc. Of course, there is also a lot of blanket bans, which means that there are some regulations that are put in place in purpose in order to prevent some minority groups to participate to the cultural life, where this or this actor or musician is not allowed to participate to a festival or to a cultural event. And last but not least, there are in many countries like Lebanon, like Democratic Republic of Congo, and many others, what is called prior censorship boards, and these are commissions or like departments where the artists have to submit a draft of his music or play or scenario in order to get a prior approval before to start working on his film or documentary or festival or book sometimes, before to make it available to the public. Of course, during this year in 2020, and because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of measures that actually restricted freedoms, including in democratic states. So the states of emergency laws were put in place, curfews in some cities or some countries or some neighborhoods. People were had a limitation in their circulation and mobility. They were tracked digitally in order to observe the movement of the infected people. gathering and assembly were banned in some places, and of course these measures have been have made it possible to repress, to prohibit, to control, to verbalize, to question, to violate rights, and to even imprison ordinary citizens, but also activists, artists, and opponents. People were physically and digitally tracked and persecuted. In some countries like Morocco, for example, many people have been arrested or and even sentenced because they have expressed criticism towards the health policy against COVID-19, or they have even questioned its effectiveness. We have had a lot, thousands of fines in several countries that have been applied for non-compliance with these measures. And of course, in different countries, from France to Chile to Lebanon to Cote d'Ivoire, USA, Guinea, etc., we have witnessed a violent oppression of demonstrators and protesters in the US, also because of the Gilets jaunes movement, or because of the Black Lives Matter movement, or because of the uprising in Beirut, or during the demonstration against the re-election of presidents in some sub-Saharan African countries, or even in Algeria, for example, in the case of the Hirak, that was a reason to arrest and imprison a lot of activists who were also demonstrating their opposition through their artistic works. And there are, depending on the countries, of course, there are different kind of violations. So it can be legal actions taken against these artists or activists, from persecution to imprisonment to detention. Of course, there is a lot of censorship acts, and these artists can be threatened, sometimes threatened to death, or for women threatened to be raped and sexually assaulted. Artists or their artworks or their venue can be attacked, damaged, destroyed, burnt. They can be abducted or kidnapped. They can be sanctioned or fined by a union or a syndicate or a federation or a corporation. They can also be persecuted either by a certain political or religious or ethnic group, but also by their own audience, either in the real life or on social media, for example. They can be also restricted from traveling, or banned from the entry in different countries, and sometimes even be killed, like it happened with some artists in countries like Iraq, like countries like the sub-Saharan countries, where there are some terrorist groups, and many other places where artists can be killed, either because they are artists, and because the artistic practice is considered as non um, uh, non allowed by certain religions or certain beliefs, or because as artists they are engaged and committed to defending human rights or freedoms or their community, or they are socially engaged. And here are some examples of artists around the world that have been suffering from persecution and and uh, and um, and violations of their right as artists or as citizens expressing an opinion or an opposition. These artists are actually from different artistic backgrounds. So it can be music, it can be film, it can be visual arts. They are from different countries, from Egypt, for instance, from Turkey, from Morocco, from Cuba. These guys have been in jail because of a TikTok video. They've been they even died in jail, like the case of this young Egyptian filmmakers who died in prison and whose death is still under very a lot under a lot of suspicion. They can be also pressured and pushed to flee their country and to seek asylum and refuge in other countries. They can be put in jail. Is the case of this Moroccan rap singer who spent 1 year in the prison in Morocco because of a song that criticized the institutions and including the royal institution. Is the case of this artist in Cuba that defend freedom of expression, and many others, not only in countries that could be considered as dictatorship or or countries with a lack of freedom and democracy. But this can also happen, as you will see in the next slide, in so-called democratic countries like Australia, like the United States, with on a regular basis. For instance, books are banned from school because their content is seen as offending some religious group or promoting LGBTQI communities or promoting homosexuality, or some in places like France, where the public space was quite a challenge for artists during the COVID, for example, and in many other countries. So basically, how can we actually do something to support or to help those individuals when they are in danger or at risk? What can be done actually at different levels in order to reduce these violations and to transform and change the regulations and the laws in different parts of the world. Of course, there are different options, and many times these options are available all together or at the same time, and to be used at the same times. There are some wonderful organizations that offer direct support to artists at risk or artists or activists in danger in their country. They can provide safe havens and shelters for them to leave their country and to be able to be safe and protected. They can also provide them with grants and fundings to help them make a living from their art, away from their countries where they can be in danger and not safe. These organizations also can provide some pro bono support, like healthcare, like legal support, psychological support, networking support, etc. Another level is this of advocacy. So many organizations does advocacy, either organizations that focus specifically on the artists and their rights and the cultural rights, like Free Muse, for example, or human rights organizations that defend and advocate for human rights at globally in general. And this advocacy is made through their monitoring and their report on cases of violation of freedoms by some states or some groups, and they are in direct a connection with the United Nations, for example, and they provide specific reports. They are in contact with special rapporteurs whose role is actually to raise awareness and to advocate and to call on states to respect their commitment towards some international conventions and human rights treaties. So these organizations actually use the available human rights instruments that are available for them to do such a work. Another level is to lead solidarity campaigns, and this can be through releases, public releases, calls, petitions, organizing solidarity concert or other artistic activities, or auctions, for example, to raise funds to help these artists who are threatened or in danger. Media are also a very important tool in order to raise the awareness on some cases and to expose some situations of danger, of violation of human rights in some countries, and this can be very, very helpful. Indeed, it can also have, it's a double-edged. It can put this person also in danger even more, or threaten their safety. That's why there are some particular rules that are very well known and mastered by these specialized organizations that can, of course, take all the necessary precautions to protect the person or the individuals that are in danger. Networking is one of the most interesting tools for us to use, because it's very important to be together, to stay connected, to reach out to each other, to mobilize our partners, our donors, our funders, our like beneficiaries, everyone that can be counted as support or as someone that can be a relay for the information in order to circulate and to be spread all over the world. And last but not least, education is a very important aspect. Us as cultural groups, cultural operators, cultural workers have this opportunity to be in touch with audiences and with citizens. So it's very important to try to transmit the importance of artistic freedom and artistic expression to our audiences in order to have them in our sites. And of course, this education and this training is not only for those public at large. It's also important to train artists themselves in order for them to know their right, to know what are the disposition available for them in order to create in freedom and to be safe and protected. Lawyers sometimes needs to be trained and educated because they don't know about this aspect of human rights, as our journalists, or even sometimes human rights activists themselves. They don't pay enough attention to artists and to cultural workers, and they focus on journalists, on activists, on political activists, etc. And they sometimes just don't pay enough attention to how artists can also be a target for violations. So is there any hope? Actually, for me, even if as a cultural operator myself, and I've been through a very difficult years these 2 years. As you might know, my organization Racine in Morocco have been shut down by the government by a decision of justice. We had to stop all our projects and activities, and the association doesn't exist anymore. just because we have hosted this very critic and free web talk show in our premises, and this was broadcast on YouTube, and actually the authorities didn't appreciate it that much. So basically, this made us maybe even strong, and made us even more convinced that culture is the solution, and culture is, or at least one alternative solution to create change and to transform our societies, our institutions, our citizens into a democratic and free societies, and open societies, and societies that are driven by a spirit of solidarity, societies and citizens who are emancipated and free and critical, and are actually capable of holding our leaders and political leaders and decision makers more accountable and responsible, and to make them actually apply the universal values of human rights and freedoms in the laws and in the society, with this very important dimension again of education. And us as cultural workers has the duty of educate our society and accompany all these social and political processes and transformation in order to play our role of vigilant monitors and clock alarms. And so yes, there is hope, and the hope will come from culture and from cultural workers. And thank you very much for listening to me and for watching this presentation. I hope that it was not too hard for you to follow, because of course there is a double challenge here. It's the online and only the recording of the voice. I hope that you have enjoyed this digital seminar of Oracle for this year, and I hope for us all to be able to meet next year for the 23rd edition, somewhere again in a beautiful place all together. You take care and stay safe, and see you all soon.
Hello again. First, I would like to say I'm sorry for these technical difficulties sometimes that we have during the presentation with the sound, because it's this digital environment now in which we are living, like Zoom, and having possibility to have this online conference really support us. Sometimes it can cause some kind of difficulties not to have options to follow in a high quality the presentation of Dunya. So we have this presentation, and it will be put live, I mean, as a video on YouTube channel of Lokomotiva. So those of you who wants to see it once again in a more quiet and concentrated environment, you will have the chance. And at the end, you see the last slide, DouniaBenslimane.com. It's the website of Dunya, so you can practically go there, and there is a contact of her. So if you have, because we don't have chance for live interaction with her, you can write her a mail, and I think that she would be very pleased to answer you. So now we go live, and we will have chance to interact in two ways. The one that are connected directly to the Zoom stream as audience can pose the questions at the end of this session. And also those, but also raise a hand if they want to go live and posing the question to be seen by the participants in the audience. And those that are following the live stream on Facebook can put a question in the message box, which will be then afterwards transferred to the panelists. And now we are continuing with Lidia Makowska and Uranija Pirovska. So Lidia Makowska, I said she's an expert in cultural and equity human rights policies, a certified trainer against discrimination and a cultural manager. She's a chairperson of TEC, Women Coalition in Dansk region, which is dealing with women empowerments, including girls and non-binary persons. She's also a holder of European diploma, very active in the field of culture, working in the Cultural Center of Baltic Sea, but also in the Secretariat of Arts and Baltic. She's member of the Managing Board of Culture Action Europe. Lydia will really talk about the situation in Poland, which we are all familiar with in a way from the media. There is a really like big strikes going on right now. So she will refer why the strikes are going on, how did they begin, will the chance the human rights practice, especially related to the LGBT people, be provided, or the woman to win legal and safe abortion, but also about the interference of Roman Catholic Church in the policy. And after that, we will have our dear Uranija Pierkovska. She's a graduated lawyer with 20 years of experience of human rights issue. She started to work in the Ombudsman office, working on child protection, discrimination and prevention of torture. And for the last 8 years, she's also the head of the Department for Public Relations and spokesperson. And she's 2020, she's very active. I mean, she's holding the position as an executive director of the Helsinki Committee for Human Rights. She will refer to what's going on with the issue of human rights and the marginalized group in Macedonia in the previous government or the regime of Gruevski, and how this was changed with the actions of the protest, which was rooted in the civil activist organization or the mass protest of the people of Skopje and the Republic of Macedonia. What was the role in this from the side of civil society, and what is the situation now related to the government policies in women rights policies, LGBT community, and the role of interparliamentarian groups in the fight for those rights. So thank you very much for being with us today. And please, Lydia, you can start with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Violeta. I'm very, very pleased to be symbolically in Skopje now, in Gdańsk, in North Poland. We had snow yesterday, so I hope you have sun. I was very inspired by Dunya's presentation and speech. So I would like to tell you about 15 minutes about actually the solution of Dunya's presentation. Yes, I do agree the solution is the culture, and our hope is the culture. And I was asked to present to you the Polish women's strike, which is going on now in Poland, a massively protest of women, men, but this is the protest which is very much, in which very much the artists and cultural workers are involved. I would like to share my presentation, to start by sharing my presentation. Just one moment. Share screen. Okay, so you can see, so Violeta says already about, okay, this is, at this moment it is not possible. Violeta said about my professional background. I'm very happy to be in the Oracle network, as I am 20 years ago, so I am one of the pioneering graduates of the European Diploma of Cultural Project Management. And then I was working for almost 15 years in the cultural sector as a cultural operator, curator. Also, I had my experience with administration and governmental network as Baltica, and also in Brussels, in Cultural Action Europe. And then after those 10 years, I have decided to use my competences as a cultural worker in a sphere of human rights and civic activism. As I saw in Poland that my competences are really very needed in this field. So I made a lot of trainings, and now I am a trainer of anti-discrimination, and I deal with human rights policies. And in Gdańsk 2 years ago, and I am very proud of it, we have managed locally with our local government to establish a Gdańsk Center for Equal Rights and Equal Treatment, which deals with all discrimination issues. And this is also open for artists, for the censorship that we of course also have in Poland and in Gdańsk. So I am very, very happy that the Free News is dealing with, that we consequently with the censorship, with the lack of artistic expressions. So we are doing this also in Gdańsk. I am also a chairperson of Women's Coalition in Gdańsk region, which is the women is in the name, but we are dealing since 10 years with human rights. So they are empowering young women, girls, migrants, non-binary LGBT plus people, which is very important in Poland. And now shortly, women's strike in Poland now. They have started on 22nd of October. So today is it's almost 50 days of people protesting on the streets, constantly protesting. And I, as a feminist, as a human rights activist and a cultural worker, I am very happy that those protests, they have started against abortion ban. And they were from the very beginning supported a lot by Polish artists, cultural workers, with many, many artistic happenings, artworks, etc. So it is really, as we say, so the art, culture is the solution for human rights. We can see this really now in Poland. And me personally, I am so happy that I can observe this now. But back to this women's strike in Poland. What is very important that this is that there are protests not only in big cities like Gdańsk, like Warsaw, like Kraków. Those protests are everywhere. In Poland, we have 950 cities, and in almost 600 cities, people, mostly young people, went to the streets with many demands to governments against the Catholic Church, demanding human rights and freedom and solidarity. So it is really a big thing to observe how young people are now acting in Poland. Of course, it is because a little bit of the time of pandemic. In Poland, the school is closed since actually March this year. And this school in Poland, in the Catholic conservative Poland, it's still in the 19th century, like in the Bismarck time. So children and teenagers are asked to learn everything by heart. There is a lot of violence. There is too less diversity and influence, impact, and on discrimination. And in this moment, those young people being violated in their schools, having now only online school, went to the streets. So I would like to stress this, that probably if we would not been in the time of pandemic, so many young people would not have been on the streets, but they are. And this is the fact, and we are very happy. And we are very happy that the women's rights and human rights as such is the topic. Just very shortly to say why it's for us that much important that the human rights, that this protests are about human rights. So it is very much connected in Poland with the Roman Catholic Church, which is since 2000 years against the emancipation of women. It used to be like this all the time. And the role of women in Poland is very traditional. It is seen by the Catholic Church. So it is, of course, kitchen, children, church. And you maybe remember the year 1980, so 40 years ago in Poland, in the communistic Poland, we had the revolution, the Solidarity movement. And the Solidarity movement was started in shipyard in Gdańsk as the trade union Solidarność and Lech Wałęsa. And it was a paradox that together with the trade union and the workers and the leftists' demands, there were a lot of church in this solidarity movement. So this picture, there is one of the mess. I was a very small girl at this moment, 40 years ago in Poland, and what I remember in this shipyard at this time, they are messes, priests and workers. And of course, there's the role of Pope Jan Paweł II, John Paul II, who is like a holy person in Poland. And afterwards, this solidarity movement 40 years ago lasted only for 16 months. On 13th December 1981, we had the domestic war, the martial law. Today is the 13th of December, so we have today the 39th anniversary of this beginning of this domestic war. And of course, it is today in Warsaw at 12 o'clock begins a big demonstration and protests. But again, to the Catholic Church, at this moment, just Catholic Church had a lot of impact, actually a crucial impact, the main impact of this change and fall of communism in Poland. And this was 1989, the round table in Poland in June, first free elections, then the fall of Berlin Wall. In all these changes, there were Catholic Church in Poland and the main actor in this game. So just slightly after the falling down the communism in Poland, the Catholic Church has demanded a concordate, so an agreement with the Vatican. And it was about, for example, first of all, ban of abortion, Catholic only, Roman Catholic religions in the schools, 2 lessons a week, whilst we have, for example, only one lesson of art a week and 2 lessons of Catholic religions. And Poland is not much mono and homogeneous as the Catholic Church would like to say. They are also other religions. They are secular people like me. They are atheists, and we don't want this Catholic religion lessons in the public schools. But it has been lasted for actually 30 years. This, I would say, this Catholic, Roman Catholic propaganda. And then Poland as a country in the Middle Europe had this neoliberalism, so the welfare state was kind of an empty slogan. They were, and this is very important when we think about women, we had actually a lack of a state nursery and kindergarten, nursery for old people. So we women have to take care of our old parents. There is a lot of invisible work at home for women, a lot of discrimination. There is also the payment gap between men and women at work. This everything we have in Poland. So therefore, now as the Polish women's strike has started, so therefore that is so important that there is about human rights and about women rights. And politically, it has started actually 5 years ago as the party Law and Justice, led by Jarosław Kaczyński. This is a far-right party. It is not a conservative party like in Great Britain, the Conservatives. There is a far-right party with a lot of neo-fascists in these parties, and we have to live with them since 5 years. But already immediately as they have won the election in 2015, they have started again to demand the total ban of abortion. And 5 years ago already, there were first protests in Poland in 2016, led by Marta Lempart. And this is among to this all those democratic violences that we have now. This party, Law and Justice, is making a lot of destruction of democracy in Poland. But on the other hand, from the perspective of artists, we have like 2 worlds. The one is that we artists, cultural workers, are actually now absolutely unpresent in the national institutions because they have been taken over by these fundamentalists from the government. But on the other hand, we have our own world. The world is on the streets. So I could say that the artistic life, freedom of expression is now, it's happening now in Poland on the streets. And as I said, 50 days ago, the protests have started because of an announced totally ban of abortion again. Of course, this ban of abortion still does not is not a rule because it is not possible. And you have seen the involvement of artists. This is Jarek Kubicki, a Polish artist who immediately have produced a kind of a dialogue with the solidarity movement with this word, wypierdalać. Wypierdalać in English means fuck off. And this is fuck off, and to jest wojna, which means this is a war. And as you can see, this fuck off word, as a vulgar word, was absolutely at the very beginning by many people not acceptable. Why that much vulgar is this revolution, they were asking. But we have the feeling, and we are convinced in this feeling, that it is actually what artists now have the power and courage to say. It is fuck off with your fundamentalist government, with your traditional Catholic policy in Poland, what is not at all acceptable by young people. And they went to the streets. Over 1 million Polish people within those 50 days went to the streets. And all of them with this demand, fuck off. And this fuck off was for the government, but also for the Catholic Church. And this is for the first time in Poland that the young people heard their political voice. And women heard their political voice. And this voice was heard and respected. You can see here a picture. So this was also a demand. I wish I could abort my government. Young people have this demand to the government and to the Catholic Church. No women, no cry. So no women, no state. So this is an enormous, big now women's empowerment, human rights empowerment, young people empowerment, and also culture and arts empowerment, because as you see, everything is actually on this homemade posters, paper boards, on these materials. So this is really very creative, everything. What is then, just coming to the end, what are now the results after 50 days? So this abortion ban is still not alive, so we do not have this total abortion ban. But what is more important is that it's the end of taboo on abortion in Poland. Of course, in the Catholic Church, abortion is a big son. So actually, this is an absolutely taboo topic. And now we have a support from abroad, from Women Help Women, Abortion Network in Amsterdam, Berlin, Czech Republic, Vienna, and from Sweden, from Norway. A lot of countries are now offering to the Polish women an abortion abroad. And for the first time since 30 years, I am aware in this fact, dealing with human rights, I could go on the streets with this paperboard, abortion without limits, without borders, and the local number where Polish women can get the abortion, which before was not possible. What is next? So it is this is the result, but of course there are also bad consequences. First of all, there is a huge police repressions now on the streets. So it's a picture of Polish politician, member of the parliament, Barbara Nowacka, who was presenting her ID card from the Polish parliament, and at this time she was attacked by the policemen, and they sprayed tear gas against her eyes. There are now a lot of protesting people. They are arrested by the police for some hours. The police, they beat people. The police is very aggressive. So today we would have this at 12 o'clock, this big manifestation and protest in Warsaw. And we know already that really huge corps of police were sent to Warsaw from everywhere in Poland. So probably today there will be a huge violation on the streets against people. They only would like to have their human rights. So this is, for example, one of the artists with her artistic happening. So what I would like to say, just to the end, yes, this revolution, those Polish women's strikes on one hand are very brutal now, and there is a lot of violence, and of course I have tears in my eyes because I am here involved, and I also was repressed already by the police. But on the other hand, me as a cultural operator, as a cultural person, an artist, I'm so glad and I'm so happy that arts and culture are really very big, have a really big role in this revolution. And then for me as a human rights activist, it's also very important that this revolution, this women's strike is about human rights. And for example, about LGBT people in Poland who are very much oppressed by the government, by Catholic Church. And this is this red lightning. It's the symbol of women's strike, Polish women's strike. And I'm also very happy that there are some institutions in Poland, as for example this one, Instytut Kultury Miejskiej in Gdańsk, who has decided to put this red lightning in the logo as a public institution, a public cultural institution. It is very important. And this is also very important that we have those performances and artistic happenings like this. This is in Gdańsk on the Baltic Sea. This was a short performance inspired by Margaret Atwood, handmade tale. So you see women handmaids and the rainbow flag. So this Polish women's strike is about human rights and about giving us the hope that the culture is the courage in this situation, and artists really can do more in the situations of changing society, of changing the government, of protesting about violence in human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for this very interesting and inspiring presentation. And even though it's devastating to hear that after 30 years, the ban on abortion was, sorry, my camera is off. You managed to fight one fight, and it's devastating that it needed for 30 years, but still it's a kind of very important success. And I think that we are all in heart with you today for today's protest, and I'm really honored that it just happens that you're presenting now on this very moment and on this very important day in Poland having this strike. With your and the previous presentation, we go about a little bit about the line with the limited time, and now we have Rania, so I will continue this session 10 minutes more just to have enough time to have her presentation, and then if needed we will find another way if there are some other questions to be answered through mail or through messages. So Uranija Pirovska, I will also say that she is a deputy member of Fundamental Rights Agency, member of the Pardon Commission of the President of the State, and National at the National Coordinative Body Against Discrimination in North Macedonia. So please, Rania, the floor is
yours. Thank you, Vicky. And Lydia, you have our support. Through this fight you have, we have shown our support. We had a protest in front of the Polish embassy a few years ago, and this year again. We are following closely the situation in Poland because we have faced something like that. But let me start from the beginning, because I found very much similarities in what we were facing in Macedonia in the presentation of Dunya. All the violations of human rights that she stated we have faced in the regime that lasts for 11 years. So from 2006 until 2017. I have to say that the first sign that we are dealing with the regime was in 2009, when the students and some of the civil society organizations were protesting against building a religious object in the main square of Skopje, and they were brutally attacked. Shortly after that, in 2011, after the elections, one young man was killed by the security guard of, at that time, Prime Minister Gruevski, and now fugitive in Budapest, Hungary. And 2012, 24th of December, when we have faced a brutal attack on the constitutional order, when during a session in the parliament, the representatives from the Ministry of Interior tried to expel the MPs from the Social Democratic Party by using of force. This was a brutal attack against the constitution, because the parliament is one of the pillars, independent pillars of the society. And from that time and until 2017, we have faced that that we have to act, we have to do something, we have to unite, because you have to understand that at that time the opposition parties, political parties in the opposition were very inactive. They were mostly invisible in that resistance. So the civil society organizations were the ones who have started the resistance, who have started the protests. I think that the Gruevski has followed the most effective recipes to build a dictatorship, mainly to give the perception to the people that there is an internal and external enemy. The internal enemies were the civil society organization paid by foreign donors, of course, Sorosoids. We were all Soros mercenaries paid to destroy the public and the constitutional order, because we were showing our revolt against the politics of his government. Not only that his policies were against all the human rights, but in 2013 they tried to, as well as in Poland, and 2012 they tried to define the marriage in the constitution like a union between one woman and one man. So he was playing on the card of the perception of the people. You know, Macedonia is a still very conservative society, very homophobic one, and of course LGBTI community, feminist groups, and all the progressive thinkers in this society were the ones who are to blame, because the whole their campaign was lying on the premises that they are building traditional values and the family as the most sacred segment in the society. Their attempt to change the institution and to define the marriage in the constitution was not effective. luckily, they couldn't enact that definition in the constitution, but then they proceed with the law on abortion. We didn't have the same situation as you do in Poland, so they didn't ban the abortion, totally ban the abortion, but they limited the space of the free choice of the women to decide about whether they want to do the abortion or not. So they amended the law, so the women should have the permission by their partner, or in the second instance that the Minister of Health should decide if it is okay that the woman has the abortion. We started with very organized campaign against these policies. First of all, we try to do it in a legal way. We have prepared initiative and we have submitted that initiative to the Constitutional Court. But at that time, and until 2017, we were facing a capture state. So all the institutions, including the public prosecution, the parliament, and the judiciary, were in the hands and direct influence from the executive power. So it didn't help. The Institutional Court didn't found our initiative, let's say, they didn't approve our initiative, and afterwards we have started protesting in front of the parliament. Until 2017, we had to deal with that law, which had severe consequences over the women's rights. In this protest, the civil society organization dealing with women's rights were all included, but not only them, but the whole civil society sector as well. In 2014 and 2015, the student plenum became very much involved in this fight against the regime, and so they start protesting for the autonomy of the university, and they were, of course, protected and in a way and supported by the civil society organization in whole. But what was very important that during that time, not only the protest, which we found that it is the only channel which through we can express what is going on in the society, because the media were totally corrupted by the government, and we couldn't spread our messages through the media. So we found that the only way is to go on the streets and to talk about what is going on in the society. That was the one thing. Then, of course, we were sending reports about the violations of the human rights at all international bodies. We were lobbying in Brussels, meeting European MPs who were in charge for Macedonia at the time. But until 2016, we didn't have any real answer, because only in 2016 that the European Commission came out with a report that states that Macedonia is a capture state, and that all the institutions are used by the instruments of the government in gaining their personal interests. In 2015, the leader of the Social Democrats revealed that 20,000 citizens were wiretapped, and he started revealing some of the tappings, and that is how the real protests begin. One of the protests that I remember and I will never forget was the protest that happened on 5th of May 2015, when the police showed a brutal force against us, the protesters, and during that night around 40 protesters were arrested. We decided that we have to give the direct help to the people. So the Helsinki Committee was giving free legal aid to the protesters. We were hiring lawyers, and they were all covered by our help. And some of those court proceedings are still ongoing, which is unbelievable. We also had the political prisoners, because at that time the freedom of expression was severely violated. We had a journalist who was in a detention for 6 months. There were several fabricated cases in which more than 20 people were arrested. The Helsinki Committee was monitoring those court proceedings, and for some of them we also prepared applications to the court in Strasbourg. At the same time, the government was conducting a process of lustration of all the inadequate persons in the society, meaning all the people who were criticizing the government. That process was very brutal, and many of those people have faced, let's say, damage to their image, and it was very painful. For some of those cases, we also had applications in the court of Strasbourg. After the revelation of the wiretappings, during which we found out that not only the politicians, but also the civil society activists were under surveillance, the colorful revolution started in 2016, when we united the civil society sector with the political parties in opposition. Those were civic protests. We decided that no party flags will be visible on those protests, and they become mass protests. Finally, in 2017, but before, of course, we faced the most severe incident in our history, the events of 27th of April in the parliament, when where the members of the Social Democrats were brutally attacked by the people who were on the streets, but who were in a way provoked by the leader of the VMRO-DPMNE, Gruevski, and the protesters to get in the parliament and attack the Prime Minister Zaev and all his
Jaz se izvinjam, v momentu imamo neki tehnički problemi, verjetno je, I'm sorry that I started speaking in Macedonia because I was caught up by these technical problems and the need to urge to react immediately. So we have some kind of problems with the internet connection, probably coming from Urania. So she's disconnected now, but yes, maybe we will wait her to reconnect because it was in the middle of her presentation.
It was, as I could tell about this presentation, because it is I'm very touched by this presentation and about the regime that you had in Macedonia for 15 years. We have to deal with our regime for 5 years, and really just to listen how much struggles you had in Macedonia to overcome this regime. It is, to me, as a really very much touching. Very much touching. I hope that we would not have to wait in Poland still 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but also this is very strange how, let's say, I will refer to your presentation now. because I learned some things that I didn't know previously, and how like in the 80s you had so progressive joint policies based on human rights and connection of all the levels of the, here is Rania. Okay.
Rania.
Audio.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's fine.
I'm very sorry, my internet was unstable. So I was talking about LGBTI community, because I forget to mention, even though that was very much important, because, you know, in those kind of regimes, the LGBTI people, the minorities and women are most targeted groups. In 2012, we have established, the Helsinki Committee has established the LGBTI Support Center. And that center from 2012 until 2014 have suffered 4 attacks. One of them was very severe attack when it was in June 2013, while we were celebrating the Pride weekend. 30 masked people attacked us. Luckily, we were not hurt, but one of the police officers who were protecting us was not very much, but he was with some kind of injuries. The perpetrators were never found, but what is very important is that the Prime Minister Gruevski didn't came out to condemn the violence against the LGBTI community, neither him or the Ministry of Interior. The perpetrators were never found, even though we had videotapes. We have sent those videotapes to the Ministry of Interior immediately. So this is still issue that bother us, even though starting from 2017 we don't have such fears. Even the Prime Minister Zaev, when we were celebrating the 5th anniversary of the LGBTI Support Center, came to our celebration, which was something that is not happening very often, not only in Macedonia, but in the region. So starting from 2017 until today, we managed to prepare and enact the law on non-discrimination, which was a very important law, and now it is in a preparation to be enacted, the law on gender-based violence and the legal recognition of gender, which is about the transgender people, which are very important laws. And in 2019, the Parliament has ratified the Istanbul Convention. So crucial changes. I mean, we are now involved in every working group in the government. We are heard. We can send our recommendations. We can really be involved in the processes. But still, we are facing administration that is not very much capable to go, you know, to go on with those culture of cooperation and to really be the service of the citizens. But this is, you know, this is a process. We have faced 11 years of regime that has made big consequences to our system. But I'm really very much optimistic, especially when it comes to the marginalized groups on which we are very much focused. Now, as I said before, we are lobbying for these 2 laws on gender-based violence and gender recognition to be enacted in the Parliament. And we are of course monitoring the situation in the area of the human rights very closely every day. there is still very much to do, but I think that we have made big steps forward. I hope that I didn't took too much time, so I will end here.
Thank you, Rania. And it's always good to hear at the end this summing up what positive changes have done. And I would say, and I think that all of being present here and more in Skopje and Macedonia will agree with me that you have lots of deserving for having these positive changes, but but really fighting against the pressure and fighting with everybody on each position, believing in what is right to be done for the people, especially for the marginalized group. So we are practically 3 minutes till the end of this session. So far, as I'm seeing on the Facebook and here, we don't have questions or a raised hand. So I
could maybe take the time just to
please.
thank you very much to Uranija, because first of all, you gave me a lot of hope that, you know, after this 11 years of regime, that you have now the hope before you. And I very much hope, I also have the hope that you will be soon in the EU, and your accession to the EU will come soon, because, you know, we have Poland and Macedonia now. Have so many similarities now in fighting for the democracy, human rights. So we really need to be together in the European Union just to show our solidarity and use our similar experience that we have. And, you know, if I of course knew this, but if now I think about your former leader, this criminalist actually, who is now in Hungary, and our president of Poland and our government of Poland has the only one allies in the EU, which is Hungary. And this is terrible, to be honest. And I'm very touched, and it was very moving to me, your presentation. But thank you at the end for this hope.
Thank you, Lydia. It was really nice, and I enjoyed your presentation as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Rania. Thank you, Dunya. Even though we hadn't chance to speak in person, if it just happens that somebody has a question additionally, I will write you a mail and then we will respond it. And thank you all for being with us in these 3 days of Oracle 22nd edition of Oracle International Congress of Cultural Managers and Cultural Operators. So this goes as thanks from Lokomotiva, Center for New Initiatives in Arts and Culture, and our partner, Oracle Cultural Network, and thanks for the Ministry of Culture to North Macedonia that support this Congress that open very important issues of culture and beyond, burning issues happening right now that needs to be reflected. So we are finishing here with the open sessions, and then after this we will have the third part of the workshop of Philip Farr on co-creation, which is only for applied participants, and the Oracle Congress is finishing today in the afternoon with the closed assembly session of the Oracle Network meetings. Have a lovely Sunday.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. And we see you in another occasion, hopefully live.
Yeah, hopefully.
Exactly, and also I hope to meet you live also, not only on internet. And again, many thanks to Oracle and the Ministry of Culture to North Macedonia to see the connection between human rights and culture. This is very important. We still don't have this in Poland, so I really do appreciate this kind of closing together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.